Hi, welcome to Sabbath School Daily, where we have been studying from this lesson right here, God's mission, my mission. This week we're studying from lesson number 12, which has the title Esther and Mordecai, and today is Thursday's lesson, which has the title The Miracle of Purim. Today's lesson brings us the conclusion of the story of Esther and Mordecai and their people in Medo-Persia. Look at what the first paragraph of today's lesson brings us. Commentators for millennia have noticed that God's name does not appear in the book of Esther. This is the only biblical book where such a phenomena occurs. However, the Jews were able to recognize God's actions in the great deliverance made for them, and this book was selected by God's people to be included in the canon of the Bible. And then it says, are we able to discover the presence of God beneath the surface of our daily life? God's actions can take the appearance of normal, natural events, and if we don't pay careful attention to them, we will not notice God's presence. I always found it interesting that God's name is not mentioned here in this book. And yet we see God through and through, navigating through the different situations going on in Esther and Mordecai's life, delivering them, and through them being a light that shines for those who stand for the truth, even in difficult moments. What I find fascinating at the conclusion of the story is the result that it had on other people that had witnessed what had happened here. This is what the lesson says. Many people of other nationalities became Jews. That's in Esther chapter 8, verse 17. This is a great example of how the Lord was able to work to bring lost souls to a knowledge of Him. How did God do it? By this super difficult moment in the life of Esther, Mordecai, and their people where they were facing death. These extreme situations can have a positive effect. When people see that we will not give up our belief, our trust in God, that sparks something in the human heart. Why would these people facing death remain true to what they believe? The lesson then ends by saying, the leaders of the Jewish people recognized the working of God. When the Jews were victorious in defending themselves, they declared a yearly time called Purim in remembrance and celebration of their victory. These days are still traditionally spent in thanksgiving to God in remembrance of His deliverance. It's always good for us to remember the different moments of life where the Lord has delivered us, where He has freed us and redeemed us from so many situations and ultimately from the reality of sin. So while we're still living in a world of sin, we can already breathe the air of heaven. As citizens of that kingdom, we can take hold of the promises that God has made to us that one day, very soon, the reality of sin itself will be vanquished. Since today is Thursday, we have a challenge and a challenge up. Look at what the challenge says. Pray that God will give you the courage to share something He has done for you with one of the people on your prayer list this week. The challenge up is begin a diary or journal of special little things or big things that God does for you. Review it and pray that God will bring these things to your mind at just the right time so you can share them with someone. I've always found it a fun thing to do to write down my prayer request, and then years later, when that prayer request has been quite obviously answered by the Lord in whichever way He decides to answer it, to remember everything that He's brought me through from the moment I prayed it to the moment where He answered it. That's when we start seeing the miracles that God works in our life that we don't notice because we simply weren't paying attention to it. Don't forget to study your lesson today. There are incredible texts that are mentioned here for you to read from the Bible, and also there are questions for you to fill out, for you to answer, and to think about throughout the rest of today. Also, comment on below with any questions or any comments. I'd love to interact with you. And please remember to like, to share, and to subscribe to our videos. We release one every day, and I hope to see you again here tomorrow for another Sabbath School Daily.